Welcome to Customer Bloom's Growing Business Faster podcast, where we talk about all things related to growing and scaling your business in today's hyper-connected world.
Hey, I have got Hardik on today, and he is probably one of the best examples of what I would consider doing the thing with, being an entrepreneur in the business of marketing and business of bringing your medical practice forward. And Hardik is, Dr. Sony at those spa. He has a location in a very nice area in Summit, New Jersey, and we've been working with him for a couple of years. Say hi, Dr. Sony.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
Good. So, I want to ask you some questions. We're really talking about confidence building here, what it takes to, break that barrier and get into sort of that peace of mind that things are working and that, you don't have to be stressed out. Because I think a lot of practitioners that we talk to that are especially starting their entrepreneurial journey if they're new, but even the ones who are in the midstream have a kind of tale of two doctors, right? They've got the doctor who's happy and doing the procedures and his practices working, and then you got the doctor on the other side who's stressed out, waking up in the middle of the night saying, "What am I going to do?" So I wanted to ask you, why is this so important for doctors to get their confidence and their strategy set up so that they don't have to get into these phases of like Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde, right?
Yeah, and it is important because in the end, unless you really have that confidence and that you almost have to be fearless when you're in business if you truly want to succeed and achieve your goals. And, I would be remiss if I said that, look, I started out confident, because I didn't. I was scared. I was anxious. When I started my practice, I knew nothing about running a business. So all those fears and anxiety that's kind of inherent to being an entrepreneur are there. And to a certain extent, stress and fear are both essential for survival, because they allow you to really come up with a strategy and a plan to succeed. What's not healthy is anxiety. Anxiety in and of itself is very paralyzing because you don't know what to do when you get anxiety. Fear and stress will strive you to be a better person as long as you don't let it overshadow what your ultimate goal is. So when I first started, I had a lot of sleepless nights because A, I did not have any experience in business. B, once I opened up the doors, I didn't know how I was actually going to bring in the clients. I spent a lot of money in building a beautiful place, bought all the equipment, thought I got the right staff and everything. But at the end of the day, none of it matters unless you can get people through the door.
100%. And let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we right now with your sort of happiness level or fulfillment level with where you feel the practice is?
Yeah. So I'm going to, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would put it at a 7.
Perfect. And can I ask you, before you even explain what the 7 is, why didn't you say 6?
Okay. Because I felt that I was closer to getting to kind of being very fulfilled, but there's still a little bit of journey left. Definitely a 5 is almost kind of like that ambivalence in the middle. And certainly I'm not there, but I always feel there's room for growth. I think I'm in a much better place than I was a couple ago, thanks to all the efforts that we've done working together. And we're a step closer, but I think there's a way to go, and so that was just a natural reflex, I guess.
Good. No, I wanted to ask you that question because I like to get into numbers right away, and so that people understand kind of where you fit. Do you mind sharing what on a monthly basis, average, what the typical revenue is being driven today?
Yeah, sure. So right now at present, I mean, we've experienced remarkable growth from last year. I mean, I'm still a little bit baffled by the growth we experienced, because before we really started working together, I had gone through a lot of companies, and, a good month for me, let's say a couple of years back, would be about 120 to about 130,000 gross monthly revenues. This year, I don't know, there's some sort of switch that just, flipped. And we're averaging between 200 and about 220,000. Take the summer months, for example. Typically, I'm like on the verge of slitting my wrist because the business just drops. And while we have seen that seasonal drop, I mean, last month we did about $200,000. That's for a summer month. That's absolutely insane. And, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of figuring out things to do. But to me, that's where we're right now. We're averaging about $200 to $220,000 gross revenues.
Right, and that's what I wanted to talk about, which is that you're in a zone where you have some flexibility, right? You have some ability to take on other opportunities, to look at other things, to maybe take a pause and maybe think through, like, we could do other things, or we there's some other products that you like to go. And I think the initial problem of getting off the ground, right, which is, how do you get into that cycle where you get finally to the point where it's like, okay, I've got a point where I've got some room here, and what do you think the specific roadblocks that people should watch out for that you went through to get to this phase? Like, what was the major things? And again, not just in marketing. I mean, obviously this podcast has a lot of that to do with, but I would like to hear like more of the functional issues, because sometimes it's personnel, sometimes it's like how you're doing the operations. What were the major roadblocks, or just a couple that you think were things? And then we'll talk about that switch flip that I think is really a good thing to talk about.
Yeah. So, marketing aside, which obviously is a huge component, right? Getting the clients in through the door. I think the two biggest hurdles were, first, this was a very unfamiliar space to me, because for the longest time, you're a physician. People come to you because they're sick, and they're going to come to you. You're going to get them better, and they need you, and they need medical treatment. This is a space where it's an elective procedure. It's, for the longest time, it was viewed as a luxury kind of service. I think that kind of perception is declining, where it's almost becoming a necessity. But that was the first challenge, to really kind of mentally prepare myself that, hey, now I'm a businessman. I'm offering services and cosmetic procedures which aren't necessary for a healthy life, but they're more of a luxury. So just that entire mindset that we're not treating a disease anymore, but we're enhancing someone to make them feel a little bit better, make them look a little bit better. So that kind of transition to that thought process was one of the challenges. Another challenge was really financial. How do you structure a new practice? What kind of equipment do you buy? How much staff do you need? So it's all the things that kind of determine the operational costs and the expenses of running a business. That was the challenge. And I made all the common mistakes. I hired more staff than I actually needed in the beginning, and when I should have been a little bit more lean. I also bought a lot of new equipment and the latest kind of gadgets and all these things. And this almost, drove me to the point of closing up shop, because the barrier to entry in a cosmetic practice inherently is so high, because of not only the technical expertise that you need and the training you need to acquire, which would be another roadblock, but the equipment that you need. So if I had to do it all over again, I probably wouldn't have invested in the latest technologies. I would have considered buying pre-owned lasers that are certified. I would have considered running a more lean operation in the beginning. And then as the business grew, really kind of invested more into it. So those were the big three.
Good. So I want to ask you, what's the most common reason for people to give up? Like, where you brought that up in your discussion, you're like, I almost failed. Where do you think they break?
I think the breaking point really, I would have to say it's almost all financial, or it's driven by financial, which then leads to the fear and anxiety. Because unless you're bringing in revenues to really kind of at the very minimum maintain your overhead cost, you're going to quickly run into the red. And the breaking point, month after month, if you are kind of in those negative streams, it really wreaks havoc on you, because as physicians, we traditionally have a good lifestyle. We take care of sick people, we make a decent living, and we go home. When you're a business owner, you have so many other challenges and issues that you need to think about that it becomes overwhelming very quickly, because you did not have a good business plan. You did not really think about the opening costs and the operational costs. And the third one is you try to grow a lot faster than the environment and the restrictions will allow.
Great answer. Great. And I think that's where we find the same unobtainable expectations in the market, where people have started to break their confidence. They're expecting, X plus Y plus Z, when really the market is X. And we try and, we have these conversations. A great conversation starter is, what what are the competitors doing? Where are you? What do you want to do? But really, what can you functionally even handle? Because I think another piece of it is, as people are in this space, and you have to think about it, it's like you have to have the support and the resources in order to even execute. And I think that there's another piece of this, of why people get concerned, is that they kind of maybe as you said, they overemphasize trying to go too fast out of the gate, when they could basically take like one service and really just work on that one service and just get that thing figured out, and then buy that next device.
Yeah, and you bring up that I want to kind of reemphasize that point again, the last point that you made. That's exactly what happened with me. I really overextended myself, and I, instead of offering maybe let's say 3 or 4 services that you can really build on and keep your costs down as you grow, and I started out adding 7, 8 services right from the beginning. The thought process was, well, the more I have to offer, the more likely someone's going to find utility or a necessity to come in for one of those services. But I wish I would have paid attention to the top 5 cosmetic procedures, and maybe even just focused on the top 3 or top 4 procedures. And I think I would have been in a much better place earlier on if I had that guidance or knowledge in the beginning.
Let me ask you a question that might be a little bit off topic, or it might be a little bit strange. What are you not good at?
I am not good at tempering my vision. And what I mean by that is, inherently I'm a dreamer, and to a large extent, to be a successful business person and entrepreneur, you have to be a dreamer. But sometimes those dreams really get away from me, between what is, immediately attainable, what is attainable in the near future, and what is the long-term vision. So my biggest drawback is this quest just to be the best at everything, and to really go from point A to point Z without going through the other 24 letters in between. And that's my biggest weakness, actually. And, and additionally, it also my strength to some extent, I guess.
Sure. And that's what I was going to say. Sometimes, what I was going to ask you next is to tell me something that's true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
So, that's a tough question. When you say no one agrees with you, I mean, I've had plenty of naysayers in my family when I started this. No one initially thought that I could build a business of this magnitude, and make no qualms about it. I mean, I'm not, comparing myself to a lot of other practices that are also have attained that level. But, it's that ability to really feel that you have something going on, and that you have a viable vision when there's nothing concrete to support it. And people have a hard time believing inherently that they can do something because of the unfamiliarity of the territory. And I think that would be the biggest challenge, is entering a space that you were not really classically trained in medicine, and feeling that you're going to dominate that space. And so no one agreed with me on that. No one felt I was a threat. No one believed that I could do it, because again, it was a little bit of a leap from physician to entrepreneur.
For sure. And I think that's where I wanted to talk to you on the core of this. And we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. I really appreciate all the insight. And definitely we're going to do some more series with you, Dr. Soni, because I think there's a lot that we could get to. We'd probably do a 10 series pack with you on every different subject, because you've got so much to offer. But here's where I was going with that. You're right. I think what ends up happening is that we get impacted by our environment, whether it's family, friends, or whatever. And there's the constant nagging of you could have done this, or you made too much advance, or you did this. And I think if we think through the metamorphosis of the old stuff, sort of like what I've coined as the moth going into the flame and becoming the flame. So you kind of have to almost kill your old self off and become the new self. And that's where I think this kind of, especially in the aesthetics market, it almost makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people are coming to you. They're not coming to you because of pain. They're coming to you because they want a better self. And it's almost like it's parallel. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and it, this was a very kind of interesting concept, and an unfamiliar concept to get used to, because unless you are in that core specialty of dermatology or plastics or cosmetic surgery, you are used to taking care of people that are either having pain or suffering from some ailment. So when it comes to taking care of someone who's just looking to improve themselves, that was a roadblock, because sometimes people also feel bad about taking money, especially physicians, for things which may not be necessary. So that was quite a transition. And the second thing is, when you engage in entrepreneurship, you really have to kind of shed that old self, and you have to be fearless. You almost have to have the ability to accept a certain amount of loss and heartache if you really want to come out of the other side of the flame or the fire kind of reemerged. So that would be key.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you one more question and we'll wrap it up. And we certainly have some additional episodes with you, because I think you're probably one of the dead center guys on understanding a lot more than just what we're talking about today when we get into pricing and understanding the mechanics of the markets. And I think I want to save that for another episode. But the last question I have for you is, obviously people who need help, who need resources, who need someone to actually get out to. I know that you've been providing your own services to people, meaning that you'll help with consulting arrangements, and you'll help with getting people over the hump if they're interested in your your engagement strategy with how you're working with patients and doing the things, and again, even beyond the marketing, just the operational guts of it, equipment, all that stuff. I mean, we know you have some cool stuff coming with the Face Portal, which we'll link in this episode. You can go to the really the operational Facebook side of this. Is got tons. It got 1,200 doctors in it now that have got constant conversations about how to improve themselves. But also, you yourself can be reached for consultation, and we'll certainly put your contact information in this. What would you like to tell the audience? And again, there's thousands of people who listen to this. How it would make the most sense to connect with you, and what would make the most sense to work with you on? Where would you like to add the best value for someone who's interested in maybe getting a consultation with you to get through their challenges?
I think one of the reasons I started the group was I sensed a tremendous amount of frustrations amongst physicians. The biggest draw to medicine used to be that you were your own boss. You did a good job. You did a noble profession, and you got paid well for it. It was an immensely respectable profession. As we start losing more and more of the control and the respect and the nobility that was in the profession, we're looking to kind of fulfill ourselves. And that was the impetus for me working with other physicians. I wanted to give them back their independence, and whether you're just kind of starting out in the initial planning phases of your venture, or whether you have a practice that's newly opened and going, or whether you're a little bit more seasoned and you're looking to really kind of make the practice as efficacious as possible. I'm able to help with kind of all of those stages because I've been through all of those stages. I made many mistakes, and I could have easily folded at any stage of the game. And even by no means, now that we are in a better place, there are still challenges all the time. My job is to help you navigate those challenges, to cut out the distractions that you may be facing when you try to run an aesthetic practice, and to really focus on the meat, the marrow of the situation and what it's really going to take to help you become successful. There are a lot of so-called experts. There are a lot of distractions out there. And the most important thing is that you have an accurate roadmap, number one, and you have the resources, the tools, the personnel, and you surround yourself by a community of other physicians who are all looking to help each other. And that's the ultimate goal of this community we're building. It is for physicians and it is by physicians. I'm just a small component. My job is, if you need my help, is to help you hit the ground running from day one and to support you to the point where you are able to be successful.
Awesome. So let's get that stuff into production for anybody who's listening to this and wants to go to the Facebook group. I think that's a great place to start to engage if you're interested in working with Dr. Soni directly. What's the best email to reach you at if they want to call you directly or get in touch with you directly?
Yeah. So, I'm always available by cell phone. My cell phone number is 973-752-2332, or they can reach out to me at ethosmedspa@gmail.com. And that's ETHOSMEDSPA consulting@gmail.com.
Perfect. And of course, we really want you, if you haven't spent the time and you are in the aesthetics market, you need to be part of the FACE group or the aesthetics marketing group. And that's easily found in Facebook. I'll also link that here in the notes for the show notes. So if you are driving or running on the treadmill right now, you can easily just get to this episode, and the show notes will have the Facebook group. But again, you just have to look up the aesthetics the aesthetics group. I think
it's Aesthetic Medicine and Wellness Group.
Right. I was going to say, I think it is specific. If you just type that into Facebook, you'll find it. It comes up right away for me. Awesome. I'm going to put this out right away, Dr. Soni, and I appreciate your time. We'll come back, and I know there's going to be a lot of people who have probably going to want to comment on this, because I think it's the most critical element of what we are seeing consistently, which is build confidence in your practice and it grows. And if you are a 7 or below, if you're taking your 1 out of 10 where your aesthetics practice is, maybe it's time to get someone to help you get out of your own way, take the roadblocks out. And Dr. Soni is absolutely a winner and a great guy. And I'm excited to get this episode out there and let everybody know about you.
All right. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, Matt.
We've reached the end of this episode of Customer Bloom's Growing Business Faster podcast. So be sure to subscribe to the show and stay connected to us on customerbloom.com. We appreciate you joining us and look forward to providing you with realistic ways to help support and accelerate your business here on the Growing Business Faster podcast, Brought to you by Customer Bloom.